just in case you are dying to hear more about the syllabus and in your free time, or if you need something to help you fall asleep tonight. So anyways, welcome to Bio 199. This is your lab. I'm Dr. Waggett. It is very nice to meet you. I have sent out a couple of welcome emails to you over the past couple of weeks. If you were registered in the class already earlier, and I tried to send out another one or two this week. It's hard to keep track of all the emails I sent out, but I know I've been trying to keep in touch with you so that you had a little connection to the university and had an idea of how the lab would work this semester, given that it's going to be a little different, and it might be the first semester for some of you at UT. So as I mentioned in my welcome email, if you had that, normally we meet every week and we meet for the full lab period, but this semester we're going to have to meet a little differently because of the physical distancing CDC guidelines, but I still will see you every week. Typically, we don't meet the first week. So this Zoom meeting is an extra meeting that we don't usually have. Usually the first week, since all of the Bio 1 and all of the Bio 2 labs have the same lab in each of the sections each week, if there is like a day that we're missing, like a month, so this week we're missing Monday and Tuesday, in order for all the lab sections to have the same prep and the same consistency throughout the week, we just don't have lab that week. So for example, Thanksgiving week and the first week of the semester, we don't have lab because it's kind of unfair for, you know, Monday to have a lab or Monday to miss a lab. So we keep the labs consistent each week. So what you're going to get in this section is the same as what whoever has lab on Friday is going to have. So I chose for us to meet just so that I could go over how this is going to work, and so that you could actually put a face to the names and get to know both me and your lab mentor and feel a little bit more comfortable with how things are going to go. So I'm Dr. Waggett, and I put a intro video and a little introduction to myself on the Blackboard page that I hope that you watched. And your lab mentor her name is Gretchen, and I'm going to ask her to unmute and say hello.
Hi guys, I'm Gretchen. Nice to meet you all.
And so Gretchen put a little intro bio to herself up on Blackboard as well, so you can know her. So she is also, both of us, she mentioned that she's a bio geek. Clearly I am too. And some of her interest is marine biology. Mine clearly is too. So that doesn't mean if you have a pre-health interest, we'll be unable to help you. I try to infuse that into all of our labs, because I want you to understand that what we're talking about is relevant to your career path as well, particularly as we're going through dissections and a lot of the organisms that we introduce. There are some representatives that can have a human or an animal health perspective in terms of being parasites and those types of things. So what you'll see over the course of the semester is, since our in-person time is more limited, I'm putting our pre-lectures on Blackboard for you to watch before you come to lab. Also, what the mentors often do is they put together kind of an overview of, they're called mentor tips. Things that you should pay attention to that maybe it comes better from a peer than it does from an instructor. And also the mentors are the ones that set the lab up. So they're the ones that make sure the specimens are in the right location and that the slide boxes are put together properly. So they will also, Gretchen will also be will be a little bit more consistent in her reminders for you to clean up. So it is essential that we always clean up after ourselves at the end, but it most definitely impacts Gretchen if things are not like dried off properly and those types of things. So she will also help me to make those types of reminders. Also, there are some skills in terms of how to study for this class, and the mentors often have the best information for advice, not just because they more recently went through the class, but also because they host what are called open lab hours. So they see a lot of students come through and help guide them in study advice. So if you are struggling with things, it is my job, and I do have open lab hours, open office hours for you to, and I answer any questions, but we do notice that students often like to go to their peers first. So we will do our best, both of us, to make sure that you have what you need to succeed in this class. All right, so I am going to start, and this is usually kind of a dry part of the class. We usually do this in person during the first week, but since we have Zoom, I want to just get it out of the way. So next week we can concentrate on content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up our Blackboard site and go over and hit the highlights of where to find important pieces of information so that you can be successful. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Oh, right. I was reading the news. Okay, actually, this is something that I was watching. So I'm being dorky right now, but every first day of school, I lay in my bed, and so Finding Nemo didn't come out until I was an adult, but still every day on the first day of the semester, I lay in bed and I have like panic wake up. So I wake up way earlier than I had to because I'm like excited to meet you guys and I want to make sure that everything is done and prepared. And so I just picture this every first day of school. Yeah. Okay. Right? That's it. Yeah. And I kind of feel like, I'm going to stop it now. I kind of feel like this is a good combination between like my excitement to see all of you and for the semester to start, and also like, oh my gosh, is this really happening again? Because there's so much for us to do to get ready. And particularly this semester where it's like, this is very different. So, and I also like Finding Nemo because it is a fantastic overview for if you watch the movie and you're a science dork. They show this incredible diversity of organisms, which we're going to look at this semester. So you have this anemone, and you have these fish, and you'll see coral. There's a huge diversity of organisms, and we will be looking at a lot of those this semester. All right, so we don't have to watch 2 of them. Okay, so if you pull up Blackboard, you're going to start with the course overview. That's the first page. This isn't where you're going to find content. This is just where you see those introductions and like how the class is going to work. I tried to kind of summarize this in the navigating the course information. Your syllabus is located here. I'll pull that up in a little bit, but I recommend that you print it out, or if you use a tablet to write notes on, but make sure that you have a copy of that you can easily reference frequently because of all of the dates, the due dates. And this semester, I spent much more time organizing the syllabi than I ever have before, because the way things are happening, everything is going to be due in Blackboard, and I want you to be able to keep track of due dates without missing any of them, right? And so having it very organized was my way of kind of trying to help you. Course goals and objectives are also on the syllabus. There's this information on netiquette, just as a constant reminder if we do meet on Zoom or we're working together. And then your textbook information. So I do want to tell you, so you will need your lab manual before the start of the semester. Before showing up to lab next week, you're required to read lab 1 before we start, because we're just coming in and we're going. There is also each week something called a pre-lab check-in. So it's a quick quiz. You can do it with your lab manual open, but it's just asking very basic questions to see if to make sure that you've actually read the lab manual before coming to class. We will have a couple of assignments that are called virtual labs. It's not, you're still coming to lab in person, but the virtual lab is they will take you less than 5 minutes to complete, but it's a reinforcement of some of the topics that we're looking at, like natural selection. So make sure that if you are co-enrolled in the lecture, you have to buy the textbook for the class Raven Biology, and also Connect Access. You get a code from the bookstore. And if you, let's see, if you were in Bio 1, your subscription lasts a year. So if you purchased a subscription within the past year, you will still have access. If you don't, if you're just enrolled in Bio this lab and nothing else, and you don't have access, let me know. Just send me an email. We will also be using like a online software program called eMind. We have purchased that software for you, so you don't have to get it, but we will be using it, and I'll show you how that works later as we go. For lab, I typically do not require a lab coat and goggles for this lab. It's recommended but not required, but this semester show up with your lab coat and goggles. It is best practices, but also in this, the age of COVID, having the lab coat on will protect your clothes, so you don't have to come home and get changed after being out and about. And the goggles will protect your eyes as well. So if you're a glasses wearer, that's not a problem, but we do know that there is transmission through eyes as well. So the goggles will help protect you from that. And also when we do dissections, sometimes things squirt. And also if you have long hair, tie your hair back before you come to lab on dissection days. Let's see, those are the main things that I wanted to talk about, and then Gretchen's little intro is on the bottom. All right, so what I'm gonna do is show you, oh, I hit it. Oh, there it is, course content. For each week, what I recommend that you do is click on the folder. Okay, so this is week 1. There's really nothing in here. It's just like how to get started with Zoom, and you managed to do that. There is one tutorial in here. This is your access to Connect. So attempt to do that sometime over the next week. It's not due until middle of September, but this is just so that you understand how the Connect virtual labs work. You get points for just completing it. It's not it's not like something you have to worry about doing well at. But this is a good way to see if you're connected to Connect. But for week 2, I have that open for you already. You'll pull it up, and what I'm trying to do is make everything very clear for you. So each of these folders will highlight everything that will be required. So there is a pre-reading. Make sure you read the lab manual before I see you on September 2nd. Also, before you show up to lab, regardless of which group you're in, make sure you complete the pre-lab check-in. It's due by 11:30 a.m., right? So lab starts at 11:30, so make sure that you've done this check-in quiz. It is super easy. It is unlimited attempt. It's there for you to get points. I will have a series of lecture videos. I'll click in here so that you can see what they look like, but watch the lecture videos. They go over the content. They are what I would usually do at the beginning of lab. And then you'll come to lab. After you're done with lab, there are some things that will be due post-lab. One is called a post-lab checkout. it is also designed just to reinforce what we've done in lab. There's 2 attempts, so it's also there for you to get correct. Your highest score counts, and it's helpful for a couple of reasons. Every week after lab, we have a review lab quiz. So starting on week 3, you're gonna have a lab quiz on all of the material that we covered during lab 1. So we're gonna do taxonomy and cladistics next week. The week after that, you will have a quiz on that material. I want you to do well. They are hard. So typically when we meet in person, the students don't always do well. Usually they are surprisingly hard. I don't think they're hard, but the level of detail that we ask is often surprising to students. And so one way that I think will help you do better on those quizzes is for these post-lab checkouts. They have similar questions to what you will see on the lab quiz. They will not be identical, but instead of showing you the life cycle of a pine tree, I might show you the life cycle of a flowering plant and ask you questions about that. The next week you'll see a question on a pine tree. So there will be similar questions, but it gives you a good idea of the level of detail that I'm going to ask and the topics that I'm going to ask. So use those post-lab checkouts. Take notes on what I'm asking so that you have an idea of what level of information I'm looking for, because some of it is specific. There will also be homework assignments, and that reinforce the material. And then the next week, there is also a lab quiz. Okay, so there's a lot of things that are due, and though it is all to be completed in Blackboard. So I'm going to show you one thing that might help. Okay, so this is the calendar. All right, my calendar has 7 million things in it because I have all of these different classes. So you'll notice that it's all color-coded. The blue is our class. So if you look at your calendar, this class, all of their assignments, they're like pre-loaded in here, so you know if you look at this calendar, you know what you have due on which days. So there's this pre-lab, actually this might be, oh yeah, no, that's correct, okay. So you'll have pre-lab check-ins, you'll have lab quizzes, let's see. And those things are programmed in here. Also notice that on Tuesday night, the night before we meet, that's when I typically have your homework assignments due. So if you're like curious about due dates and stuff, your calendar can help you. And you can kind of marry that with your own personal planner as well. All right, so I'm going to go back to week 2. So if you go into the folder, you'll see there are, the top is where I put the videos. There's some extra kind of assignments. I'll talk about them next week. And then I have already preloaded, they're hidden from you, but they will go live on next Wednesday. The post-lab checkout and the homework assignment. And the due dates are listed as well. So you'll have that information ready for you. All right. So I think that kind of walks through mostly how things will work. But yeah, just definitely look at the overview for the assignments and the due dates. And I will see you every Wednesday as well. So if you have questions, that's a great time to ask. And both Gretchen and I can answer questions for you. So what I would like to do now, I'm going to stop sharing this, is kind of do a kind of little review of the syllabus. Okay, I'm looking at the chat first. Okay, it was only online. Yes, no, Samantha, you got the right one. It is only online. Yeah, it is a digital version. We did that intentionally So last spring, we had students buy a hard copy one, and I am, knock on wood, we're not going anywhere, but last year during the spring when students went home for spring break, they did not all take their textbooks with them. And so our students were at home, unable to come back without their textbooks. And so it was challenging to get the lab manual available to them remotely. And so we wanted to prevent anything like that happen. So if you get whatever, if you had to quarantine in a hotel and you didn't have your textbook with you, you still have it digitally. So we thought that was a better plan. Wherever you are, you can have it. And we'll all be able to keep going forward. So, but very good question. All right, so I'm gonna pull up my syllabus now, and you also have access to this on Blackboard. All right, so you should see my screen where I have my Word document right now. I'm gonna hit highlights. I'm not gonna read all of it, but so most importantly, yes, we are meeting in person. So starting next week, we're meeting in person. There will be two groups. The first group will meet at 11:30. We'll meet for an hour and 15 minutes. And then the second group will come after that. And I'll go over the groups after this. We'll be meeting in CB 166, which is our lab room we always meet in. If you would like to talk to me outside of the classroom, then I have office hours and I'm hosting them through Zoom. That's what we've been asked to do. And I have them on 3 different days. I tried to space them out into different times so that if you have a strange, I know what schedules are like, that hopefully one of those periods will work in your schedule. If those don't work, then I am certainly going to be available to you, so we can set up a different appointment as well. The same Zoom link we used for today is the one that I'm going to use. It's going to be my link for the semester. All right, I have this prologue, which I've never had in a syllabus before, but it's basically kind of like an overview where I want you to understand that the goal is for us to meet face-to-face, just in the way that I've been laying it out all the time. But I do want to be clear that if there is some sort of university guidance or an order from the state, the federal government, the county, the city, whatever, then those could lead to us having to go remote. I taught this class entirely remotely all summer. I taught it in summer 1 and summer 2. I'm prepared to put this remote. It will go smooth. I promise we're gonna have no issues, right? So I want you to know that that's there. And my goal is not just to make sure that this class goes smoothly. I want you to stay healthy. Like, I don't want any of you to get sick. I don't want to get sick. I don't want my kids to get sick. So please make sure that I will be monitoring my health, but I want you to do the same. So please take your temperature. If you wake up in the morning and you don't taste your breakfast and you don't smell anything, you're like, why isn't my shampoo smelling good? Right? Those are signs. So pay attention to those. If you are experiencing a symptom, but you feel fine, still take that as a sign that you don't need to come to class. I know in previous semesters, and Gretchen may have experienced this as a student, we as professors are used to be very big sticklers about attendance. Whereas, I used to have something in my syllabus that said if you missed more than 2 labs, you'd fail the class. That's not there anymore. I have a segment in there that does say that, attendance is expected this semester, but by attendance, I mean either in person or remote. So if you're not feeling well, you will not be penalized for staying home. Absolutely not. Even if you don't have a fever or you're just like, oh, my stomach hurts. Even if it's mild and you're not feeling well, I will still count that as an excused absence. Just email me the circumstances. I'll provide you with the remote option, and we'll make sure that you stay up to date with the class. it will not be an issue. It is more important that we, are looking out for ourselves and each other, and we are flexible this semester. So, and do know that if it is a mild symptom, it's not going to hurt you to get tested anyways. It's a good way to know whether or not you can, oh, it was nothing, I just ate something bad, right? And then you can come back to class and none of that is an issue. So just so you know, if I am feeling ill or I am forced to quarantine or I contract any type of sickness, flu, COVID, whatever, I will let you know immediately, and I'll let you know how we're going to keep moving forward. It's not something that I'm going to keep a secret from you, but I feel that it is my responsibility to kind of inform you about any of my conditions. And you are, feel free to do the same so that we're all, and I will not share your conditions with anybody else. All right, so just wanted to put that out there. Don't come to class if you're sick, but I hope to see you. All right, so all of the other stuff at the beginning, those are just course learning objectives. I'm going to let you read those on your own, but I'm going to go over the section that everybody cares the most about, which is grading. I have more like assignments for you this semester, but because of the kind of number of them, the individual value of each one is not burdensome. The portion of the class that will count for the greatest amount of points include your quizzes. So the review quizzes that happen the week after we take we complete a lab, and your lab exams. Okay, so the review quizzes, there is not one next week because we haven't completed a lab, but starting in week 3, there will be a review quiz. And it's a short quiz. I'm going to have them open from 8:30 in the morning on Wednesday to 2:30 p.m. So basically it's open during your lab period and a little bit more in the morning in case you wanted to get up and do them earlier. But you have to complete it before the end of our lab period. So the rationale between that is like, so if you're in the first lab period, you can come to lab, complete the new lab, and then go home and take the lab quiz. Or if you're in the second group, you can take the lab quiz and then come to class. So there is enough time for you to get it done. Normally when we're in class, I give you 10 minutes to complete it. For online purposes, you're gonna have 15 minutes. So you'll have a little bit more time to get it done. And they're on Blackboard. They are typically kind of like a multiple choice, short answer, kind of true false format. But regarding the material that was covered the week before. So as I also mentioned, there are gonna be these check-ins and these checkouts. So you'll check in, make the check-in assignments. They are a little like review quiz on Blackboard on that week's lab. So make sure starting next week, before 11:30 a.m., you read lab 1 and take the quiz. I recommend taking it at the same time that you're reading the lab manual. I tried to put the questions in, I might have randomized the questions. I will check that. I tried to put the questions in order so that you could just answer the questions as you read the lab manual, but I might have picked random questions, so I'll check on that. But the pre-lab check-ins are really designed just to make sure you read the lab. The post-lab checkout is a little different. That's because I really want you to watch the video lectures and complete the lab activities, and I want you to know what you know and know what you don't know. All right, so if you take the post-lab checkout and you did not do well on it, that is a cue to study. And if there were certain things that oh wow, I did not recognize that organism in the slightest, that is your cue to look at those things, or come to open lab hours or come talk to me. So that's what the post-lab checkout is. There is going to be lab homework. It is not really designed to be like burdensome. They're ways for you to practice the material. So for the first one, for example, we're doing taxonomy and cladistics during week 1. The first homework assignment is a cladistics problem. So it's like taking the exercise and putting it into practice. And the purpose is so that you know how to do it for the quiz the next week and for the exam that we have in the midterm. So it is, if you're struggling with the homework, that's a good indication that you should ask for help, because we want you to get those questions right on the quiz or the exam. All right, which brings me to the lab exams. Okay, so we're gonna have 2 lab exams. One is the midterm, so it's in the middle of the semester, and the other one is at the end of the semester. Neither, the lab final is not cumulative. So all of the material from like week 1 to week, whatever, 6 is on the midterm. And then from like week 7 to the end is on the final. So information from the midterm will not be on the final. People like to hear that. The lab exam will be on Blackboard, and it is set up very similar to the lab quizzes. So actually some of the questions may be familiar, not exactly the same, but it will be a question like, what is the phylum of this organism? And it will be a picture of an organism, might be a different one that you saw in the quiz, but it's similar type of question. So it'll be multiple choice, fill in the blank, some short answer questions for the lab midterm. For the midterm, you only need 60 minutes to complete it, but it will be open during your lab period. So if you wanted to start it at whatever, at 1:30, you could, but it has to be completed by 2:30 on your lab day. The lab final will be available during our exam time block, which is Wednesday, December 2nd. And there's a 2-hour time block for that. You only need 1 hour to take the exam. The percentage and the points for the class are all broken down here, and this is partly why I was emphasizing where the greatest amount of points were. The lab exams are 60% of your grade. So that is the biggest part of where your points are going to come. So the rest of the material are ways to reinforce the material so that we make sure that you get it by the time you get to your midterm and your final. So the quizzes, the check-ins, the checkouts, that's all practice. And so the points are slightly lower for those so that the consequence of not doing fantastic is not as great. Okay, so those are all ways that you get to personally check. Do I understand this? Do I not? The lab quizzes are the second greatest percentage, 23% of your grade. So just to put it into perspective, kind of your greatest kind of distribution of where things matter. Your check-ins and your checkouts are a very small percentage of your grade. All right, your grading range is here. So if you get a 91.0, that's an AB. Your goal, if you are in a bio major and your goal is to get a C or higher in the class, so your goal is to get a 72 or higher. Okay, so the next part are just course technology, Zoom, Connect. I'm not going to go over those, but I will talk a little bit about how to succeed in this class. So definitely read your lab manual and study. And I put this in here not because I am like trying to scare you, but because the biggest favor you can do yourself to be successful in this class is to invest time. Some of what we're going to do may not seem hard. We will like dissect a frog and an earthworm, and you'll think, of course I know what an earthworm is, or of course I know what structures a frog has inside. But when you go to answer the questions on an exam, you will see the gallbladder and think it is the spleen. And you will be shocked because things look different than what they do in the human body. But the more time you invest, the better off you'll be. I have this kind of time frame in here. The average expectation for you to be successful in the class is that for every 1 hour we spend in class, spend 3 hours putting in time. That can be reading, studying, even if it's just copying your notes or redrawing figures. The more you reinforce it, the more likely it will go into your long-term memory. And I know that like I'm not so sure if you hear this, but like as an educator, a lot of times we hear a lot of negative talk about memorization. Memorization is not, real learning, yada, yada, yada. But if you are a scientist, you need to memorize. And if for example, when my kids were learning multiplication, yes, they learned it in multiple ways in which they learned the logic behind what is 3 times 3, and they were able to draw it into different groups, whatever. But regardless, when you become an adult, you need to know that 3 times 3 is 9, and you need to be able to recall that really quickly, right? And that is the same with science. You need to be able to recall this information, and you need to be able to recall it quickly. And if you memorize things and you use that information, it will go into your long-term memory. And so one of the things you're going to learn this semester, or I hope you learn, are ways to memorize things so that you can learn other things. So you're going to memorize body structures in different organisms, and you're going to memorize taxonomy. But hopefully, my goal is that you memorize it in a way that you learn it. So it's not just I memorized it for the test, but you memorized it to the point that next year you can bring it back up and use it when you take invertebrate zoology, or if you take an A&P class, because the structures in your frog are the same structures that you're going to see in a human, and if you can remember connectivity of different structures, it's really going to help. So I think that's one of my lessons for you. I do want you to memorize, but memorize to learn. All right, the other things are there will be video lectures. Take notes during them. If you're a visual learner, definitely watch them. If you like, you can, not that I would love listening to myself all the time, but you can watch them over and over and over again. And I know I had students during the summer that did that, but it isn't just for you to watch and be done. Take notes on the content like you would if you were in class. I strongly recommend attending the review sessions that the mentors run. They're fantastic. The students that attend those typically do better on the lab exams and the lab finals. You will see and interact with not just Gretchen, but mentors that have had a variety of different faculty, and they've seen different lab exams and are able to help assist you in ways to approach studying. Ask questions if you don't get it, and make sure you submit assignments on time. Come see. Zoom office hours are not like, you don't have to call me beforehand, just pop in. That's what I'm there for. So definitely participate, definitely complete your assignments, hand things in on time. I am a flexible type of person, so if you got in a car accident and you have a headache and can't see properly and can't submit something on time, send me an email. Just send me an email. Communication helps. I will be flexible. I have the second attendance policy: don't come to class if you're sick. If you have a religious holiday that is coming up, let me know ahead of time. And then there are, the rest of the syllabus are university policies, which you will see in all of your syllabi. So the information on COVID, if you're feeling ill, get tested, and that, all of that stuff. This other section on Title IX, I feel compelled to mention as well. If there is some sort of domestic abuse situation or a sexual harassment issue, there's that you want to discuss with someone, I want you to know that I am, as an instructor and a faculty member, I am a mandatory reporter. So while I'm not discouraging you to share that with me, if you do, I am required by law to share that with our Title IX coordinator at the university. So I highly encourage you to talk to somebody if you experience any of those things, and there are some resources for you here. And I'm not telling you not to talk to me about it, but if you did, I have to report it. So that it just, I've experienced that in the past, and I have felt terrible having to tell students that after they have shared very private information with me, and it made me sad that I had to share something that they did not necessarily want shared. If you have accommodations, and then make sure that you send the request to me. I can make those changes in Blackboard to make sure that you have the proper amount of time for your assignments. And then the rest is, oh yes, and when we meet in person, we all are required to wear masks. So if you show up without a mask, I will have some with me in the lab, but you will be required to wear one in our classes. And then, all right. And then this is our very detailed lab schedule. I have tried to make this as explicit as possible for what we're covering each week and what is due and when they're due. So you'll see, I think the most important columns are items due and the time due column. So, on September 2nd, make sure that you've completed the pre-lab check-in by 11:30. So all of this is located here. What I'd recommend doing is getting your planner or your iPhone calendar and loading all of this in there. Set alerts if you need to, or feel like you might forget something, but all of that is there for you to make sure that you have that information. Okay, so wait. So Samantha, that is a good question. She's asking if we should have like a lab notebook or a notebook dedicated to lab notes. Yeah, I would, whatever you feel comfortable with. So what I have, I'll show you. That's not working with this weird background. Okay, all right, so you can see it here. So typically what students use is they get like a 3-ring binder, and it's like a 1-inch binder. The printed lab manual fit in this, like, maybe it's 1 or 1.5 inch binder. What I would do, and my kids are enrolled in like virtual school right now, and so this is what they do for most of their classes. They have a binder, and then they print they have printed notes, and then they're like a little tab and written notes. I would do something like that. I would get a binder, and then your notes from the lectures and your notes from like in-person labs, like the drawings and those types of things that you make, I would keep it in each one in a binder, and either use like the dividers, yeah, and like a 3-hole punch. You might find a better technique, but I have noticed that that's works for my kids, and that's what I would do too. Yeah. All right. Good question. Okay, so I tried to put everything in this very detailed description here so that you have a good idea of when everything is happening. Things to be aware of, hold on, is, let's see, so first lab is next week. October 14th is our lab midterm. we won't meet in person that day. It will be online. And then Thanksgiving week, we do not meet Thanksgiving week. After that, the week after that is when your lab final is, so you'll be at home or wherever you want to be, but you'll be off campus, and your lab final will be taken on Blackboard. All right, so those are that is that information. Okay, and then the last thing I didn't share with you yet was the groups. Okay, so I'm showing you Blackboard right now. I had Blackboard randomly assign us to groups. And so group one this is our group one. And this group will meet at 11:30. So I will see Tatiana, is it Madeline or Madeline?
You can just call me Maddie. I go by Maddie.
All right, fantastic. All right, Tatiana, Maddie, Jacqueline, Maria, Carly, Samantha, Caitlin, Marissa, and Chelsea. I will see you at 11:30. So both Gretchen and I will be in the lab. And then the second group, actually, let me go back to course content. All right, and the second group meets at 1 o'clock. All right, and that second group is the other students. Okay, so Grace, not Jennifer. Jennifer, I'll see you also. Grace, Caitlin, other Caitlin. Grace, Caitlin, Joseph, Emma, Caroline, Bailey, and Brooke will be in group 2. So I will see you at 1 o'clock. Their way that, so one more kind of interesting, and this is on Blackboard, so you can pull this up at any point. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. Normally the lab holds 20 students. And students are like next to each other. What you'll notice when you come into the lab, it will look a little different. We're going to have you at stations. So each student will be working kind of separately, and you'll be spaced out from one another. So you won't be sitting directly next to somebody. There will be like a 6-foot difference. It's all been, we had like a safety coordinator come in and help map things out in the classroom. So one thing to be aware of is that I am required to create seating charts, which I've never done before, but we're going to make seating charts. And that is to help with contact tracing in case we need it. When you come in to the class, make sure that you remember where you sit. I'll have it listed there, but be thoughtful about where you choose, because that's where you're going to be for the semester, so that I can make sure that I have that information for the, I hope I don't have to share it with anybody, but in case we did. From what I understand, that because of the practices we're putting into place, the masks and the distancing, we're reducing the chance of a direct contact for an exposure. So I'm hoping, knock on wood, that it is like an unnecessary, but just is it a precaution that just is there to make us feel better. All right, okay, so I think that was everything that I needed to, wait, hold on, I have one more exciting thing. It's actually not that exciting. It's exciting for me, but less so for you. All right, I wanted to share resources for you. Okay, so here's course content. Oh, I didn't put it there. Resources, okay. Resources tab. Okay, so I've taught this class a lot. I've been putting together different things that that mentors have helped put together for students. So one thing that I had my mentor from the summer put together, I realized that you're not learning entirely remotely, but you will be watching the video lectures remotely. It's a little different. So she put together, and mentors put together this kind of tips to succeed through remote learning. So I recommend looking through this. And then this folder, these are study guides. these are, hold on, I'm going to show these. Actually, they're all sideways, so we'll just tilt our heads. But these are examples of what you can do, and I'll bring these back up again when we start looking at organisms. But I recommend pulling these up. You will be looking at a lot of different organisms this semester, and we'll be talking about taxonomy, how they're related to one another. So drawing out the relationships and using colors, or shapes if you're colorblind, but using different cues to help kind of sort those organisms will be really helpful. So for this one example, this is prokaryotes. This is the simplest of the taxonomy we'll look at. But during the prokaryote lab, we'll look at prokaryotes. The examples we'll look at are organisms from the domain Archaea and the domain Bacteria. And then underneath that, in the third color, the yellow, are the examples that we look at. And additionally, there are some kind of traits that those organisms have. So this is a simple one to start with, but they get more complicated very quickly. So this one is one for protists. So notice how much more detail that is. This might not be the way that you want to organize it. This is another example. These are protists, but this is a chart version, still color-coded. And all of these are there, you can download them. But these are just examples that you could use to help organize the information, okay? I also recommend we're gonna be doing certain life cycles, draw whatever it is that you see. The more, the actual physical writing and drawing of the information will help you to learn it. The other thing that I have included here is, I don't know if you can say that. Okay, so this is just a link to Greek and Latin roots for biologists. If you're going to be in the pre-health profession field, or you're going to be in any biology, zoology, this has a much greater amount of terms than you will ever need. But there are some that, like, I try to emphasize some of these. So I'll scroll down to HJK. Oh, it doesn't even have the one that I was, but there are certain, like here, this is like hepa is liver, right? Hepta is 7, hetero is different. If you are familiar with some of these, and you have to take something like an MCAT, or you're learning something new for the first time, you might be able to guess at what a term is just based on your understanding of some of these Greek and Latin prefixes or suffixes. And yeah, so because I mean, akaino, spiny, right? Like, these are all things that you'll see words that are all made up of these different things. So I would just look through it if you can. And if you ever have to take the GREs, I don't know if, grad schools are still gonna make people take GREs, but being familiar with these will help you on any type of standardized exam, because you'll be able to work with words that you may be unfamiliar with. All right, I think that is everything that I needed to talk about. All right. Gretchen, do you think I covered everything? Sorry.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. You can unmute or I'll put it in the chat box. But that's everything for today. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you have a fantastic first week. Yeah, I think I covered everything. Yeah, so I hope you have a fantastic first week. I hope that the internet works for the rest of the week, and that you have a good weekend. I will see you on Wednesday. Make sure that you read the lab first and watch those video lectures, and I will see some of you at 11:30 and the rest of you at 1 o'clock. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.